Hi, I'm Jennifer Ip. I'm the founder of NourishHope, and I am a board member of the International Justice Mission Canada.
And I'm Petra Koom, Director of Marketing and Public Relations for International Justice Mission Canada. We are a global organization working in nearly 20 communities in the developing world to protect the poor from violence and slavery.
Worldwide Entertainment TV attended a charity event called NourishHope that aims at stopping cybersex predators on young children worldwide. International Justice Mission Canada is doing a great job to help the epidemic across the world. We spoke with the fundraisers and the organization.
So human trafficking of women and children is a reality, and NourishHope, the event tonight, is to introduce people to this reality and to introduce people to the work of International Justice Mission Canada, that there is an organization out there who will put a stop to the emotional fear and the physical suffering of the victims who are enslaved. And NourishHope raises funds for that work. And we are here to bring the Torontonians together to join in the global movement to end slavery and human trafficking.
So historically, Canadians have always been on the forefront of bringing peace and hope to people around the world. And so what we're hoping to do through International Justice Mission is to bring safety to those who are in really dire situations. And what we're trying to do across the country is to rally Canadians to this fight and invite them to join us to make a lasting difference in the world.
Contact us through IJM Canada at www.ijm.ca.
And if you'd like to connect with us by email, you can email info@ijm.ca.
And some of you are maybe new to IGM, and I want to share with you what some of the stories are. As a parent, you start to see the world a little differently. You see it through the eyes of children. You see it through the eyes of your own child. And you would never want your child to experience that or see it. I've had the pleasure of South Asian heritage, and I went back to India a couple of years ago. My folks are from Sri Lanka. My mother's from Goa, part British and part Goa, and my father's from Madras, and my husband's Punjabi Sikh. So I had an opportunity to go back, and when you go back to India and to Sri Lanka, you see the children. And I became a mom pretty late in life. I waited a little bit to get a little bit more mature. And when I had my children, there was a love. And you become a mother bear. You protect. And when I went back to India and Sri Lanka, I had not had my children yet. And at that point, I fell in love with them. I saw them coming up to the taxis. You could see the hardship and the innocence gone from their eyes. And you knew that they were in survival mode. That's not a look I've ever seen in my children's eyes. I have 2 boys. And that's not a wish or a look I'd want to see in their faces. So when we see the story now, I want you to see the role of IJM and see how it plays part in this little boy's life and his story. Take a look at our screens in the front, please.
My name is Margot. I am 7. Superman has the best job ever. He gets to fight crime. I want to be like Superman and protect my sister from the bad guys. She's my best friend. Mom says if I work hard enough, someday my dream will come true. I tell Gabby she is safe when I put my cape on her. Nothing can hurt her then. Tell her to think of birds. They are free and can fly away. I wonder if one day I can grow wings like a bird and fly. Maybe as fast as Superman. Maybe one day me and Gabby can race him. If I ever meet Superman, I would want to ask him one question. Did he ever have to hurt the ones he loved the most?
And you've just watched Marco's story, and I'm so glad that you know that he is safe. And his 2-year-old sister Gabby is safe. And the other children who were exploited alongside him are also safe today. But I want to share a little bit more with you about Marco and his story, and about his country, and about the horrific crime that hurt him and is still hurting thousands of children just like him. As you know, Marco is 7 years old and he lives in the Philippines. He was born in the tropical province of Cebu, in a neighborhood that resembles many neighborhoods that you've probably encountered in the developing world. Marco is special to me because I also have a son. And because of that, I think I have a pretty deep understanding of what little boys are supposed to do. Little boys are supposed to play with train sets and dump trucks. They're supposed to love superheroes. They're supposed to ask for ice cream, and if any of you have little boys, you know that they ask for ice cream over and over and over and over and over again, no matter how old they are. They're supposed to wear pajamas with spaceships on them, and they're supposed to go to bed at night knowing that if they have a nightmare, Mommy or Daddy will come running to them. Those little boys are never supposed to be part of the casework that we encounter at International Justice Mission. But we do. IJM is a human rights organization that protects the poor from violence. You may or may not know that. We work in 20 communities around the world, working extremely hard to protect kids like Marco from cybersex trafficking, families from slavery, women and girls from sex trafficking. We work to bring those traffickers and those perpetrators, those individuals who abuse them, to justice. We work alongside local law enforcement, making sure that the violence stops. With a simple webcam and some old school setup, Marco's mother and a neighbor set up a very lucrative business for themselves, offering the live sexual exploitation of their children out of their homes. According to our evidence on that Irishman's computer, at least 4 children were trapped in their web of exploitation. Over the course of their criminal enterprise, Marco's mother and his neighbor distributed images and live shows to 19 different countries, including Canada. So unlike traditional forms of sex trafficking that you might have encountered, where a perpetrator needs to travel a long distance to a far-off place to arrange sex with a minor, that is not the case for cybersex trafficking. In today's world of the dark web, it is possible for a pedophile anywhere in the world to connect online. Wire a payment starting at $20, up to $150, and get a live show. Given the miracles of technology, the transaction of the sexual abuse of a small child can be completed in a few minutes. The crime is so terrifying because the barriers to entry are so extremely low. You really just need an internet access, a laptop with a webcam, or even a smartphone. The abuse happens in a closet in a slum, or it's a roving operation, a mobile phone filming in the back of a car, or an internet cafe. Pinpointing exactly where this crime is happening at the moment it is happening is tricky, to say the least. Finding these children like Marco is an uphill battle. In our experience and based on our casework, 50% of the victims of cybersex trafficking are under the age of 12. The youngest child that we have ever encountered is 3 months old. Most often these children are exploited by a relative and sometimes even by their own parent. And I need to tell you that lest you think that this is a European problem or an American problem or some far-off problem that does not concern us, I need to tell you that this is a Canadian problem. According to Cybertip, of the 60 countries investigated, Canada ranks in the top 3 for hosting websites and images and selling material containing child sexual abuse. In fact, in November 2017, one of the most horrific cases of cybersex trafficking of children involved a 28-year-old man from Saskatchewan. When authorities raided his home, he was in the midst of preparations to travel to the Philippines to abuse some of the children that he had already abused online. There were 5 children between the ages of 2 and 9. Between 2011 and 2017, Philip Chacoin paid $23,000 to abuse children online in Romania and the Philippines. Our CMP Corporal, Jared Clark, who was one of the lead investigators in the case, said it was the worst collection of child abuse he had ever seen in his 6 years in the unit. So no, this is not a far-off problem. This is a very near problem. Chacoin pled guilty to 40 charges related to his case. And today he is serving 12 years in jail for some of the worst forms of child abuse we have ever encountered in our work. But let me turn back to Marco's case. He'd been abused by that Irish man. At 6 a.m. on a Thursday morning, as dawn was beginning to break, a rescue team composed of IJM and local law enforcement drove to Marco's neighborhood. Now this rescue operation needed to go off without a hitch because those 4 children were spread across 3 homes. The rescue operation needed to go perfectly so that none of the children nor the individuals who were abusing them would get away. And ever so miraculously that morning, everything went according to plan. That is a miracle in itself. So we found 7-year-old Marco, and we found 2-year-old Gabby, and we found his 8-year-old cousin and his 13-year-old cousin. We found all those children who were first identified on that Irish man's computer. Now those children were afraid and confused, and they didn't want to go home, or they didn't want to leave their home. In the next image, this is a photo of Marco waiting at the rescue operation and waiting to get into the van. Marco is actually quite scared, and he's hesitating to get into that van with the social workers. And that is the saddest part of rescue. The reality of how hard rescue can actually be, because sometimes freedom does not always feel free. The horrific abuse has already been a part of their story. It was already a very real part of their childhood. In our world, some of those deeds of darkness cannot simply be undone. Carmelita was one of our social workers who was in the van with Marco on that day. She said that he was quite quiet, and she stayed with him and all the other children throughout the weekend, as those kids had to take turns opening up to police about the abuse that had been done to them so that the charges could be framed against the women who were suspected of abusing and exploiting them. Carmelita said that Marco's biggest concern that day was that he didn't want anyone at school to know what was going on. Here's my big concern. This crime is spreading like wildfire across the Philippines and is being fueled in part by Canadians. My friends, it is dark in our world. There's one thing I do know about the darkness, and there's one thing I know about the night, and is that it always ends. And dawn does in fact always break, even when we don't believe that it can. And so a year later, at this very moment, Marco lives in a shelter run by the government, along with Gabby and their cousins, and a young aunt who chose to leave with them. And today they are a fragile family unit, but they are being held together. And Marco goes to a new school, and he's learning new routines. And those children are safe, and they are learning to heal. We can end it, because IJM has 20 years of successful casework on our side. And I believe that you are here in this room tonight because you are part of the story of how cybersex trafficking ends. I truly believe that you are part of the story of little boys and little girls simply living as little boys and as little girls. Little kids who play with Lego and they pretend that they're Superman, but most of all, they know that they're safe even when they don't want to go to bed on time. One of my favorite quotes is by IJAM's founder, Gary Haugen, who said, "When our grandchildren ask us where we were when the voiceless and the vulnerable in our era needed leaders of compassion and purpose, I hope we can say that we showed up, and that we showed up on time." And so when your grandchildren ask you 20 years from now, "Grandma, Grandpa, what did you do?" I hope every single one of us can say, we showed up, and we showed up on time. Thank you.
Main course, and I'll tell you what the dessert is, because I won't be coming out to announce that. It's not on the timeline. So the fourth course is inspired from African roots, and it's a braised beef short rib, lightly rubbed in chili and some coriander seed, and it's just going with a garlic mash, some garlic fried callaloo, and a crispy plantain fritter, so there's some African accents to it. The wine is going with an Italian Sangiovese Diavolo. Okay, and they say, I'm going to just read this from my cheat sheet, that the area was named